You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hi, it's Michelle. So today we're going to be talking about emptiness. And I have a history with emptiness. Since the beginning of time, since as far back as I can remember being a little girl growing up in Canada, I've always felt empty. Sometimes emptiness for me feels like low-grade depression. Sometimes emptiness for me motivates me to be incredibly curious. And so it kind of sometimes looks like ambition because I'm driven to fill the emptiness and to fill that void. And so I'm always constantly trying. Sometimes emptiness for me looks like excessiveness. So I'll buy, extra groceries that I don't need, or I'll overeat, or maybe I'll overcommit to something. But I've always struggled with emptiness. And I didn't actually know that word could describe my heart until I was in high school. And I was in a therapy session because I love therapy. And the therapist asked me, Michelle, what's the one word that you would use to describe yourself? And I think when she asked me, she was expecting me to say something really positive because I was always a very, outgoing, bubbly girl. But I really sat with that for a moment on the couch and I really sunk into it, to that question. And I thought, empty. I'm just always empty. And a lot of times, our destructive behaviors that we create in our lives take root because of our emotional voids, because of the emptiness inside of us. So as I got older, I turned to my boyfriend to fill my emptiness. I needed him a little too much. I needed the approval of my parents or my friends a little too much. I turned to everybody on the outside to fill that emptiness inside of me. And I know that emptiness is one of the reasons why I ended up in a relationship with a man who struggles with addiction. Because when he wasn't struggling with addiction, he loved me very, very well and would be so tender and so thoughtful. And I almost became addicted to that kind of love, the way he loved me. And I wanted it all the time. Obviously, when somebody's struggling with addiction, they can't give you that kind of love all the time. But I kept waiting for it, almost like a shot. A shot of alcohol. I would constantly be waiting for that moment where he would notice me and make me feel so incredibly good, and be so incredibly kind and fill up my heart. And then that would last me days or weeks or sometimes months while he was struggling with his addiction. And then I would be waiting and waiting and waiting again to see when he would fill up my void. And that, for me, was part of what my codependency looked like on him. But it wasn't until later on in life that I learned how to stop turning towards the outside, to quit feeling empty. And it happened for me in a moment. And I was I live in Florida, and my family and I love botanical gardens, and there's one close by our house. So I would take my kids and I'd give them walkie-talkies, and they would play hide and seek in these botanical gardens with their walkie-talkies. And it was just a very inexpensive way to spend the afternoon. And I remember we got to the botanical gardens. They all spilled out of the car with their walkie-talkies and ran into the gardens. And I remember feeling, and it was locked, it was gated. And so as long as I sat by the gate, I knew they were safe and sound. And I remember thinking, I'm so happy. I was sitting down in a seat, and I was looking at all of the beautiful palm trees and the flowers, and they had birds there, and hearing my kids' laughter and hearing them, be able to be outside and not in front of a screen, and the fact that it only cost us like $12. And I knew the next couple hours I brought a picnic, and we got some, sandwiches and chips. So but what made me feel the opposite of empty, which is full, what made me feel full wasn't the sandwiches, it wasn't the trees, it wasn't even the beautiful setting, and it wasn't even my kids. What made me feel full was being present and being grateful. It didn't take any kind of achievement for me to feel full. It wasn't about worrying about the future, and it wasn't about thinking about the past. It wasn't about thinking about what, people thought of me or judged me. It was just being present in that moment and being grateful. Now, I know, because I've been exactly where you are, that how hard it is to be present and in the moment and grateful when you love somebody suffering from addiction. Like, I get it if what I just said made you want to throw up. I don't blame you. Like, yes, I really find that super obnoxious too. But I'm going to challenge you a little bit and say, I still think you can try. It's hard not to worry about our future, right? And be present when the person that we rely on, the person that we love, their future's so unpredictable. Like, one minute they're telling you, I'm going to get sober, we're going to do this together, I love you, we're going to, and you're super convicted that this time their sobriety really is going to stick. But there's also a part of you in the back of your mind that's like, is it really though? Is this really going to be it? Or am I going to be disappointed again? It's hard not to worry about, if they don't get sober, what is going to happen to you? What is going to happen to your family? How are you going to survive? Not just emotionally, but financially, right? Practically. So I get that that's really difficult to not worry about your future. I get that it's really difficult not to harbor or resent the past. Because when you have addiction in your life, especially if you challenge that addiction and you call it for what it is, and you say, hey, dude, listen, last night you got drunk and you passed out on the couch, and that was embarrassing, or you had a nosebleed and the kids walked in and saw. It's really hard not to think about the resentment of the past and all the mistakes and all the lies that have been building up inside of you. So how the heck can you be present with the past bubbling up within, the anxiety of the future, and also the judgment, right? I mean, you got judgment of your family and friends if they knew what was really going on, or if they knew what you were putting up with, Or if, sometimes some of us have very critical people in our lives telling us somehow their addiction is our fault. Like if we just did this, it would be so helpful to them get sober, right? Which is total BS. But also judgment of our family and friends if we thought about leaving. We're judging ourselves. There's so much judgment for staying, for loving them, for hating them. Oh my gosh, the judgment we have on ourselves when we love somebody with addiction is ridiculous. And also, let's be honest, the judgment we have on them. Why can't they just get sober? Why can't they get their act together? This is a choice. I don't care if it's a disease or a choice, whatever. It's under your control. You're putting the bottle to your mouth. You're going and having relationships with drug dealers. You're the one snorting this or smoking this or looking at the pornography, whatever. There's judgment there. How can you do this to me? You're ruining our relationship. You're being such a crappy parent. You're going to lose your job. You're hurting everyone in your life. Those are all really judgmental statements, right? They're the truth, but they're judgment calls. So there's tons of judgment around this. So how can we quiet ourselves from all that noise and all that anxiety and anger and worry and resentment and be present in the garden and be grateful? How does that happen? Well, no one's going to do it for you. That's number one. You're not going to have like some guru come out of the bushes and be like, Michelle, let me walk you through this. No, like no one did that for me, right? It takes a conscious effort, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And that's okay. It takes practice, and even when you practice and practice and practice, some days you're going to nail it, and some days you're just going to be like, I can't get there. I'm too pissed. And that's okay too, right? So try it just for a moment and try to just put yourself in a position where you can be present and you can be grateful. So if you're sitting in a dirty house with dirty dishes and beer bottles everywhere, probably not going to happen. Probably not going to be grateful and present in that moment. So you're in control of your body and you're in control of where you are at any given moment. So get yourself someplace within reason that you can be present and be grateful in. I'm not talking about like a trip to Hawaii, although that would be lovely. And if you can do that right now, actually, I don't even think Hawaii is accepting tourists. I think they're closed right now because of the virus, but go someplace, even if it's the bath, light a candle, put on music. If it's painting, grab some canvas at the art store and go find a spot on the beach. Maybe it's even your car. I had so many grateful moments where I felt full just rocking out in the car and driving with the windows down. Create those moments. Stop waiting for the people around you to help you feel them. You get to decide. You get to dictate what your life looks like. You get to choose your environment all the time. And if you're telling me, well, Michelle, not really, I have to go to work. Yeah, really. You get to choose your work. You get to choose where you work. You can choose something else. You can choose another job. You can choose to be in another environment. That's a decision. I'm not saying quit your job and go somewhere else, but you can start looking if you're not happy in your environment. It's time that you recognize you have to take your power back from all of the people and places that you've given it to. It's the time you're being called to live a better life. You are being whispered to change things up. That's why addiction showed up in your life. And it's time you answer the calling. And it's time that you start committing to asking yourself, what do you want? What makes you happy? And how can I start to feel full? How can I get unstuck from feeling empty all the time? And how can I find myself in many, many more moments where I am completely full with things just as they are, where I am grateful, where I am present, where I am happy. And you're gonna get there by conscious effort and work. It has nothing to do with getting your loved one sober. Nothing at all. You can get to that destination if they get sober or not, because you are powerful, because you are courageous, and because this is your one life to live. So live it well and take back your power from this disease and from everyone else who you've given it away to. All right, guys, I can't wait to hear about all of the situations that you are going to consciously place yourself in so that you can give yourself the greatest possibility of feeling full. I'll talk to you next week.
This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with Michelle's personal thoughts and beliefs. From one woman to another, bonded together by the fact we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.